What's up, guys? Mr. Dan here, back again to finish my review of this 5-film Hammer collection. Previously, I had reviewed the two black and white films in this collection, which are known as mini Hitchcocks, Scream of Fear and Stop Me Before I Kill. And even prior to that, I had reviewed this 6-film Hammer collection. So you can check out both of those videos if you're so inclined. So today I'm going to go ahead and finish up and talk about and review the final 3 films in this series, the larger budgeted films. These are all in color, glorious color, I might add. They all looked really great. Now, interestingly enough, some of you may have seen a video that I did where I talked about this 5 vampire film collection I got from the Dollar Tree for $1.25, and I talked about how the quality on some of those copies was not the greatest, and that's because they've got multiple movies on one disc. Another reason is they're kind of public domain. They just weren't really cleaned up. Well, in this collection, you've got 2 discs, okay? And the same thing with that one. And, you know, I know some people might actually prefer the standalone films, but the quality on these is pretty good, okay? And both of these were good sets to get if you want to sort of get started into Hammer films, okay? So anyway, let's start off with The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. This is a sequel to Hammer's 1959 The Mummy, which starred Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. Now, it's kind of hard to top a film that stars those 2 guys, and, you know, it's not quite as good, but it's a pretty good sequel. You do have a few actors returning to this film from that film in different roles, however, and they're smaller roles. And basically, you have a plot where you have some archaeologists who are digging up a mummy and bringing him back to Great Britain to sort of put him on a tour. And they're financed by an American, a very flashy American named Alexander King, who was played by Fred Clark, who kind of reminds you of William Castle a little bit. I mean, he's a very, flashy type of promoter. And one of the archaeologists isn't too happy about it, but the other guy just kind of says, well, you know, he's the one financing our expedition. We don't really have a choice. So, of course, not everyone is happy about this, and you have some figures that are sort of attacking the archaeologists and following them along the way. And then you have a figure who kind of comes to the rescue of the group when they're attacked on the boat, which is bringing them back. And a fist fight ensues, and it's kind of a fun fist fight to watch. I mean, they're just throwing these wide open punches at each other. It's almost like it's crazy. But anyway, now the newcomer, and of course, now that I'm doing the review, I can't remember his name, so I'll have to put that in the on the screen here. But he sort of falls in love with or starts to fall for the daughter of one of the archaeologists. That's usually the way these things go, and she's played by Jean Roland. And you also have an amulet involved, which may or may not be controlling the mummy. And you have, returning from the first film, is actor George Pastelli, who was an actor from Cyprus, who often was cast as an Egyptian in Hammer films. In the first Mummy, he played a character named Mehmet Bey. In this one, he plays a character named Hashmi Bey. And it's kind of a clever thing they do, because you might think he's playing a similar character, but he's actually kind of different, it turns out. And that's kind of involved with the twist at the end. So they get back to Great Britain. They put on this production where they're going to open the tomb or the casket in front of a live audience, and the promoter, Alexander King, puts on this show. He's got a slideshow and everything, and it's very entertaining. It's a very entertaining sequence. And when he opens it, the mummy's not there. And then you have the mummy stalking members of the archaeological team. And it all comes down to a conclusion, and it's kind of fun. The makeup is pretty good. Dickie Owen plays the mummy in this one. He's big enough. I mean, he's a big guy. So there's even a nice scene where he kind of like comes through. There's like a a floor-to-ceiling set of windows, you know, and he just kind of walks through it, which is kind of a nice homage to the 1959 Mummy, where Christopher Lee was just walking through windows and doors. The makeup is pretty good. You know, he's kind of more of a lumbering type of brute, whereas Christopher Lee, you got these close-ups of the face, and you know what Christopher Lee was able to do and communicate with just his eyes was pretty amazing in that film. So you know there was so much pathos there. You don't really get that from this Mummy. Also, as you can see, the Mummy is minus a hand. That is a plot point in the film. It's a pretty good film. I enjoyed it. It's a good sequel. Oh, and I forgot. Also returning is Michael Ripper, Hammer veteran Michael Ripper. In the first film, he played like a gravedigger. He usually plays like a Cockney type of character who's almost like the comic relief. Interestingly enough, in this one, he plays an Egyptian named Ahmed. Maybe not very convincingly. And you have a few other characters who are sort of the Cockney comic relief, who are kind of frightened by, you know, the whole procedure of displaying this mummy. But it's always fun to see Michael Ripper in any film, any Hammer film. And with The Gorgon and The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, I enjoyed both of these films a lot more the second time around. And I had a bit of a hang-up with each one the first time. With The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, it was the facial hair that they applied to the actor Paul Massey as Dr. Jekyll. He had all this kind of facial hair, and then they simply removed it when he became Mr. Hyde. And it's not the best fake facial hair you've ever seen in films. And basically, I just didn't let it distract me this time. I knew what to expect. With the Gorgon, you know, the Gorgon is mostly like a mystery with a supernatural element. It's kind of hinted at, and then at the end you see it. I would describe it more of a mystery thriller than, I mean, it has some horror elements, but the Gorgon is kind of on the back burner for much of the movie. And when you do see her, of course, the Gorgon is a mythical being which has snakes for hair and which can turn a man to stone by looking at him. When you do see it, the animatronic snakes don't, you know, look that convincing. But again, I knew what to expect this time, and I just enjoyed each of these films for what they were. They both are very beautiful to look at. They both feature very attractive ladies, and especially in the case of The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, and very attractive gowns and dresses. You have Dawn Addams in that film, and then you have Barbara Shelley in The Gorgon. And basically, the Dr. Jekyll story involves you know, him turning into Mr. Hyde and then sort of befriending his best friend, Dr. Jekyll's best friend, who's kind of a ne'er-do-well gambler played by Christopher Lee, who's also having an affair with his bored wife because he's in his laboratory all the time. So it just kind of details how Mr. Hyde spins out of control. There's a nice little cameo by Oliver Reed, who could have, at that point in his career, played Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde quite easily, I think, when he was in Curse of the Werewolf very shortly after this. But he's uncredited. He plays a bouncer who runs afoul of Mr. Hyde. There's a brief fight scene between the two of them. And it resolves itself tragically, the way most Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde films do. I won't say too much about the intricacies of the plot. Christopher Lee is delightful as this friend who's an absolute cad. I mean, he just can't stop gambling and wasting other people's money. I mean, he's just irrepressible. Now, Christopher Lee in The Gorgon comes in a little bit later. Basically, you have a family that has some family members. You have one young man who's like an artist, and he runs afoul of the Gorgon, gets turned to stone. Then we learn that the town doctor, played by Peter Cushing, as well as basically the police force, the town authorities, would just prefer to keep the whole thing under wraps. Then you have some other family members arrive, and there's some more victims. And it's possible that the doctor's assistant, played by Barbara Shelley, has something to do with it. And eventually, the Christopher Lee character arrives. He's a professor, one of the professors of the young man, who's now like the main protagonist in the film. And he comes in, and he suffers no fools. He's not messing around. He wants to get to the bottom of this. 'Cause, you know, they have all these kind of like polite back and forth exchanges, and he's got some great dialogue with Peter Cushing. It's always great to see those two play off of each other. And Christopher Lee, he just wants to get to the bottom of this. There's one scene where the police come in to arrest him, and he just grabs two police officers and just shoves them to the ground, and then runs out of a window like like pound sand. You're not arresting me. And you know, it comes to an end. There's a nice climax in a castle, very beautiful set, and you know, obviously they have to battle the Gorgon, who is, you know, of course, many of you are familiar with Medusa from mythology and Clash of the Titans. Where's my book? Oh. I showed this before. It was one of my prized possessions. I showed this on Instagram. This book is from the 60s. That was my mom's book. So I grew up fascinated and terrified by the Gorgon. Anyway, this is Medusa's sister, Megaera, at least as Hammer identifies her. And, you know, there's a nice climax about what you expect, but just a fun film. Both films are just fun to look at, fun to watch, just a lot of fun. And I won't, you know, go into the plot of either one in any greater detail. You should watch them. Definitely, if you're a Hammer fan, both of those have to be on your list. All right, guys, that should do it for this 5-film set. So now there's a total of 3 videos covering these 2 collections. What do you guys think? Which ones have you seen? Which ones are your favorites? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you very much. I'll catch you next time.